Well, of course, it began life as a concert to celebrate the Jubilee. And but it's timed at this time of the year because Swansea Festival of Music and the Arts is promoting it, and therefore October is the traditional time. But of course, it's been an incredibly eventful year. I mean, it's been a kind of national emotional seesaw, really. Jubilee celebration on the one hand, followed by a state funeral of the only monarch that we really, most of us, have known during our lives. And all this, of course, against the background of war in Europe and so on. So what I wanted to do initially was to make this a celebration, but from a Welsh and a Swansea standpoint. But plans have changed, and when the sad news came of Her Majesty's passing, I was reminded actually of the day on which the funeral of Diana, Princess of Wales, happened, when the BBC National Orchestra of Wales had a prom scheduled in London for that evening. And Nicholas Kenyon, who directed the proms in those days, was in touch a couple of weeks beforehand and said, could we insert the Forêt Requiem? So I'm afraid I followed this example and changed the program somewhat. But the first part of the program remains essentially celebratory. The traditional pieces associated with coronations, the spectacle, Zadok the priest, Walton's March, Crown Imperial, which was commissioned by the BBC in 1937. Well, of course, the BBC is celebrating its centenary this year, so that's quite a relevant point. And then we finished the first half with Hubert Parry's I Was Glad, which has been sung again at every coronation since Victorian times. Zadok the priest clearly made a huge impact because William Boyce, the composer William Boyce, who by that time was the master of the King's music, was asked to write for the coronation of George III an alternative setting. But he declined and said no, that Handel's setting was totally unsurpassable, and it really is, because Handel was a great man of the theatre and he knew exactly how to build up tension and celebration. But in between, we definitely have a very strong Welsh reference because, of course, one of the world's best-known composers today, Carl Jenkins, hails from Pencloud, and the festival has actually performed a number of commissions by him. So we decided, did we not, to have a new piece and to ask Graham Davies, a member of the Prince of Wales, as he was then, staff, to write a text. But I think even at that time, I think we were conscious that Her Majesty's health was precarious, unpredictable. So the text was deliberately designed to fit and to be apt for whatever circumstances. And so it is a celebratory text, but of course it looks back. The title is This Faithful Life. It looks back at this remarkable reign of dedicated public service. And it wouldn't be a Welsh celebration without a harp, would it? So we have one of the world's finest harpists, can be Catherine Finch. She's absolutely terrific. So she's going to be playing two pieces by Carl, and also playing a prominent part in the new commission, which will be sung, as will be all the choral music in the concert, by our very own Swansea Philharmonic Choir, very fine, large, mixed choir. Conducted by Jonathan Rogers, its music director. And then in the second half, we move to a different kind of theme. We will have the song David y Garreg Wen. What more traditional Welsh folk song is there than that? Sung by voice and harp, Steffan Lloyd Owen, baritone, accompanied simply by Catherine Finch. And then a piece which is, I suppose, makes reference to the fact that, we have the background of this cruel European war. It goes back directly to Swansea and to the Blitz of the Second World War. So we have the pacifist poet Walter Williams, walking home late one night in February in Pembrokeshire and seeing the sky red with the glow of the Blitz on Swansea. And it's a wonderful pacifist poem, and it's set to music. It's become almost a second national anthem, really, by another Swansea composer, Gawerton. educated, like Carl Jenkins, Gowden Grammar School, Eric Jones, whose music these days, his choral music in particular, is so popular amongst choirs in Wales. And then after that, we take a step back, and we have the Fourier Requiem, which of all the musical settings, probably of the Requiem, is the Latin Mass, that is probably the most reposeful, places the greatest stress on eternal rest and light. And I think it will bring the whole concert to a serene and an appropriate end. After all the celebration of the first half, I think we now need to take a more considered look at the Queen's reign, and of course to wish her, as we do the departed, eternal rest and light.
You know, you've put together a wonderful collection of musicians and music, and we couldn't have had a better host for our concert either, Hugh Edwards.
Well, of course. I mean, how can you know, if Handel, Zadok, a priest, was unsurpassable, I think Hugh is pretty unsurpassable as a presenter of this kind of concert. He has all the background. He is, of course, a key musician as well. Does occasionally play the organ in his spare time. And he's such a wide-ranging person, historian, and of course, recently has been very, very prominent on television. In fact, I think it was you who said to me, and many people have said to me, how he virtually held the nation in his hands, held the nation together during that period of public mourning, which was so difficult. So I'm sure he'll bring a very big dimension to this evening in terms of his own experience and knowledge.
You're uniquely placed to put this concert together. You are one of the Deputy Lord Lieutenants of West Glamorgan. You consider this to be your home, and you were chair of the festival yourself, an artistic director and head of music for the BBC. Are you still?
Not all at the same time, though.
Sometimes they crossed over. But you know, it's been. Have you enjoyed it? I mean, I know there's been such a responsibility because this was started to be planned 18 months ago, and COVID was still in the air. It still is, but we were worried about would people come out. We were worried about the Queen's health, whether she would be with us. But you kept very much that in mind. You had a number of thoughts in your head that should one thing happen or another, we were able to move ahead with the concert.
Well, as you well know, Mal, I mean, anybody who works in broadcasting has to be prepared with a plan B should the unexpected happen. Yes, I mean, as far as running the festival for 10 years was concerned, I did enjoy it. And I felt that having retired to Swansea and having been to the festival from schoolboy days and heard some amazing things there, like, for example, the first performance in Wales of Benjamin Britten's War Requiem, which was, a life-changing experience for me as a schoolboy. And I felt, well, it was a pretty poor show if I now, in retirement, couldn't actually be grateful for those experiences in terms of trying to run it myself. And I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed working with the people, getting to know the audiences. And, I hope it was a 10 years which people can look back on with some pleasure.
It as so many organisations, it's starting again. Post-COVID, a new financial world. You've really sort of embodied the festival in Wales with the Swansea Philharmonic Choir. We've got David Danford with the British Sinfonietta, but he's a Swansea boy who again remembers going to the festival as a young man. Same with Jonathan Rogers, who's our conductor for both the choir and the orchestra, and we have Sir Carl Jenkins. How important is the festival, do you think, going forward? How important is it? It changed many people's lives. You mentioned it yourself. And Jonathan, David, and I suppose Sir Carl all mention it as being life-changing, seeing a big orchestra at the Brangwyn Hall. How important is it that we keep this going?
Well, I mean, really, if you look back at the tradition, I'm sufficiently realistic to understand that the background I was working against financially, particularly with regard to public subsidy, was nothing as flourishing as it had been in the 70s, particularly, when this festival actually was by far the leading festival in Wales. I mean, people would come from Cardiff to attend the Swansea Festival, largely because of the Brangwyn Hall's excellent acoustics for orchestral music. It's a warm acoustic, and a large orchestra seldom fails to thrill on the Brangwyn Hall stage. But of course, as you rightly say, I mean, the world has changed, the economy has changed, the nature of entertainment has changed, and traditional audiences have become older. I do think it's a very valuable title, entity to hang on, but it might need to be interpreted in a different way to the future, because we have to admit that public subsidy of the arts in this country, not just in Swansea, I mean, is really going to be under such severe pressure, particularly following the Chancellor's announcement this week. It's going to be really very tough to keep this kind of thing going. And the local sponsorship base in Swansea, of course, has shrunk. I mean, it's shrunk alarmingly since the 70s. There was still some of it around during my time, but it was a vanishing beast, without question. So, I mean, the greatest way in which an impact can be made, I think, at the moment, is to put on a concert which has something really special about it, which certainly underlines the identity of Swansea, the musical traditions of Swansea, and also the international traditions for which the festival is justly famous.
These are big shoes to fill. I'm the chair these days, and looking back at those halcyon days, we'll try not to let you down, your legacy down as well, but we know we have to change. And on behalf of the festival board, I know we'd all like to thank you for your hard work and putting together such a terrific programme for this concert. We look forward to it very much indeed. So make sure you book your tickets for our special concert to commemorate and celebrate the life of Queen Elizabeth II. It's on the 29th of October at the Brangwyn Hall. If you go to swansea.fest.com, all the details are there to book your tickets. Hugh, thank you very much.
Pleasure.